30 Dutch Mantell, and you're not. And I'm joined here on the University of Dutch for our 58th edition, I think. Is that right, John?
59, actually, technically speaking.
59. Well, I talked to you before I introduced you, ladies and gentlemen, my co-host, Dr. John Pozorowski. Is that the way you say your name?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Pozorowski?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And in honor of Scott Hall, I have to say, hey, yo.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, yo. Well, speaking of Scott, I'm saddened, and you are too, I'm sure, John, about hearing about the news about Scott Hall. Good guy. Great guy. And and I didn't know him well, but I've been around him long enough. But even when I was in the same company with him, I've been there a few times, he never was pushy. He never was, I know it all. He always asked for help. And even in WWE, even though I think I worked with him maybe a 6-man tag with Ron and Don Harris, the Blue Brothers, a time or two. But he was fine. He was very easy to do business with. And he was a big guy. He was 6'5", maybe a little taller, about 260, but cut up, and a really good-looking guy. And he was the Razor Ramon gimmick fit him to a T. And I don't know who gave him that gimmick, but it was a perfect gimmick for him because it fit him. Because I think he had come along, I think probably in the 80s. And I don't know how he got into wrestling. I'm not sure of that. You know how, John? Who broke him in?
He got in through Dusty, believe it or not. In Florida in about 84. He was trained by, I want to say Dusty was one of his trainers. I'm trying to think who else was like his main trainer, but he came in through Florida. So it was probably that whole crew, like Mike Graham and all those guys.
Okay, well, but he did well. And I was working at Continental when I heard his name, Scott Hall, and I didn't know Scott Hall. So, but I'd seen pictures of him. But I think even before that, I think he may have worked in Mid-Atlantic, and he and Dan Spivey had a team called American Eagle or something like that.
American Starship.
That's right. I remember that.
And he broke in
if that was
with
after
Hiro Matsuda, by the way, in Florida. It was Hiro Matsuda.
Well, yeah, the thing about Matsuda training people as opposed to a pro training people, Matsuda, he knew the shoot style. But shoot style won't draw any money. You got to learn the dance first. Then you got to learn the storytelling.
Yep.
And that's how you make money in the wrestling business. If you just want it to be just straight up wrestling, well, people are going to sit there and like, I don't know. I don't get it.
Right.
But you got to excite them. You got to get them up. Because people don't clap and cheer and yell for no reason. That's why when I used to book, I would watch these guys come out of the dressing room, sight unseen, and if the people showed just a modicum, you like that word, John, modicum?
Wow.
Just a modicum of interest in him, well, I marked that down because they don't know the guy's story. And they're kind of responding almost right away. So the guy's got something. And that's what I based that on. I pushed a lot of guys because the first time I saw them, if the people kind of popped for them a little bit, that was a feather in their cap. So I would go with them. But if they didn't pop, if they just sit there and just looked at the guy, well, that's going to take a lot of work. But I go by that first sight, message that the people send you. So if they send a positive message, I go with the guy. But anyway, first time I saw him, I'm going to tell you a story about Scott Hall. First time I saw him was supposed to be in Dothan, Alabama. And I started on this trip down with Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden, and Robert was the booker. And, you know, Robert had a tendency to do some of the chemicals a little bit. So we left for the trip, and he's pulling his hair out. Yeah! He's higher than a kite. So we pull up in front of the where we go in Dothan, and he says, "Dutch man," we talk, "I'm gonna need some help from you tonight. Can you figure out a way to get Scott Hall over tonight as his first night?" And he laughed. He just took off. I said, "Yeah, Rob, don't worry about it." He took off. But now I learned a long time ago, never let talent call their own finishes, because you don't know what they're going to call. So
right.
What Robert was telling me, he said, "Hey, I trust you to help get this guy over." I said, "Okay." So I knew Scott Hall was a big guy, and he was about 260. I think he was more than that. He's probably about 275, maybe.
Definitely.
But so all of a sudden, Robert disappears, and we got there about 7:30. And Robert was the booker. He's supposed to be doing the booker job, not me. So I said, "Where's Robert?" 7:45, no Robert. 7:50, no Robert. 8 o'clock, no Robert. 8:10, no Robert. I went, "We're going to start at 8:30. And he's not in there. No finishes were done." And Jimmy come up to him and he said, "Well, I guess we want to hand out some of these finishes." And we knew what they were. So we just started, Robert's somewhere. He'll be back in a minute. And we didn't know where Robert was. So I look out, but I had looked out in the hallway earlier, and I saw Scott go up the stairs somewhere. I didn't know where. So as it turned out, Robert and Scott were together, because, you know, Scott's been known to tap in that chemical solutions too.
Right.
So they were together before the match started. So finally I told somebody to go get Scott for me, and I gave him the finish. And I said, "Well, tonight I think less is more." So we did this finish to where I got in the ring first. Hell of a house. About 2,500 people there, not sold out, but almost. It was a good card. So I got the people up because I had a lot of, I always got a lot of reaction in Dothan for some reason. I guess it's because they thought I was just a no good SOB.
Yeah.
Till I started talking. Then they knew I was a no good SOB, and then it just kept on. So they didn't have to think anymore. So I got in the ring and got them going. Here comes Scott Hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, making his first appearance in Dothan, Alabama, blah, 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 Scott Hall." And he come down, and people, they stood up. Good-looking guy. They said, "What the hell?" And he got in the ring, and I'm saying, "Yeah, I'm going to beat you," blah, blah, blah. And we did a little histrionics there. The bell rung, ding, 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 and I turned to holler at somebody ringside. He just running behind me and cradled me back, 1, 2, 3. In about 5 seconds or 6 seconds. And the crowd exploded. So he got out of the ring, and I went, I'm pitching a fit and, you know, doing my damn hissy fit. And I grabbed the mic. I said, "Not fair. That's not fair. I wasn't ready."
Right.
And people all over me. I said, "You can never do it again, Scott Hall, or whatever your name is. You'll never do it again, blah, blah, blah. Let's restart the match. Referee, get in here." And the referee was going like, "What the hell is that? Well, let's go." And we rang the bell again. He hopped in. I jumped on him. I shot him in for a clothesline. He ducked on it, turned around, small package me again, 1, 2, 3, in about 15 seconds. Now he's won 2 falls in a row in about 30 seconds. The people are nuts. What the hell? Now he's over. He's over like a son of a gun. And then to get him back in the ring the third time, because you know you got to do it in 3s.
Yep.
I promised him $5,000 if he could do it again. And here he come again, and I got on him. Then he started to come back, boom, boom, and the people, wah, wah. And then Robert and Jimmy hit the ring, and we kind of triple teamed him in a second. And then the 2 guys, I think it was the Nightmares, they hit, and that's who Robert and Jimmy were going to have their matches with. So we just left that match and went right into the main event. But when they left that night, they had never seen that finish. And somebody asked me, where'd you see that finish? I said, I'd have never seen that finish. I said, hell, I just made it up because I think, because he's a big guy, I didn't know him. I'd never worked with him. I didn't know if he was tough or, hell, I could have got hurt or whatever. But as it was, less is more.
Yep.
And when I did that, he was over. He was over from then on out. So, very sorry to hear about his death. And I think, where is his funeral going to be? Is he going to have a funeral? Have you heard?
I haven't heard much on that front. I would imagine somewhere in Georgia. I would imagine.
Was that where he's living?
Yes, Smyrna. Smyrna, Georgia. Yeah.
Smyrna.
Smyrna, yeah. Smyrna, yeah.
And they got Smyrnas all over the South. I don't know why. I don't even know what a Smyrna is. I don't even know where it came from. But they have a Smyrna, Tennessee, and a Smyrna, Georgia, and I guess they got a Smyrna, Alabama, and Mississippi. That is weird. But very sad, good guy. And he was still relatively young. He was 63?
63, yeah.
But he'd had some health problems. We'd all heard of them. So, but anyway, my condolences to the family and to the fans of Scott, and hope he finds the next universe a little more to his liking. So, we'll see you on the other side, Scott. Did you know him, John?
Yes. Yep. Worked with him a few times.
Okay.
Made a few long trips with him. Guy. Yeah, great guy. Oh, he's awesome.
Oh, yeah. You know, I was there the night in Madison Square Garden when they did when the Clique did the hug.
The curtain call.
You remember that?
Yep.
The curtain call. It was Nash, and it was Razor, and who else was in on that?
Shawn Michaels and Triple H.
Michaels. Okay, I remember that. But I was there. Vince, I'm standing at the Garden, you know, where the entrance was, where the guys come out.
Yep.
And Vince was not in a good mood. He was very upset that they did that. And you know, the smart fans in attendance, they kind of understood it. The other ones didn't, but he didn't like it. And you know, the only one that got punished out of that whole mess of that was, hang on a second, John. Can you hold that noise down a little bit, please? I'm live here. But the only one who got punished out of that whole mess was the Triple H.
Yep.
Because he couldn't punish the champion, Michaels, couldn't punish him. And the other two, Kevin and Razor, they were leaving. So they were out of his control. But and for the next 6 months, that Triple H, he looked at the lights every night. And I wondered, damn, he's family? And they treat him like this?
Yep.
But anyway, I don't know why they did it. I don't know if it was planned. Probably was. Was it just automatic or just spontaneous? Who knows? I didn't ask him, but I went back in the hallway and I heard some yelling from Vince's office. So I said, well, this is time for my exit. I don't want to see what happens. So I don't think he talked to anybody after that match at all. I think he just went to his dressing room and left right after the show.
Oh wow!
And I was thinking, well, this won't be the last. This won't be the last we're hearing of this. So, all right. So let's talk about this TNA. What's the name of it again?
Against All Odds, 2008, February 10th,
2008.
2008. Yep.
Now, I didn't rewatch this pay-per-view because I remember it, unlike the last time.
Right.
And I was sitting back, and I was watching the show, And from my recollection, pretty decent show. Pretty good, not bad. The last couple of matches were pretty good. And I think that's what people literally take pay-per-views for, because you can't have a story in every match. Sometimes you just got to have matches to advance one guy, or just sometimes you have them to fill in time. And a pay-per-view, for those that are unaware of it, how much time you have a pay-per-view depends on what kind of contract you work with the cable company. But I've never really seen a pay-per-view under 3 hours. I mean, that's what they were slotted for, right? 3 hours usually.
Yep.
So, and sometimes on a pay-per-view, we would take it up to 2 hours and 59 minutes and 30 seconds. And if you didn't get out in that time limit, that frame, that window frame, they just cut you off. I don't care if you're done or not, because they told you, they gave you a warning. Hey, you got 3 hours to get this done. If you can't do it in 3 hours, we're pulling the plug. We're out of here. So that's what they would do. But we never went to 3 hours. We probably the closest we have gone 258, 259. I don't know what WWE does. They may do similar to the same. But I've seen some pay-per-views. I was saying, hey, why don't you pull the plug at 245? Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time.
I don't know how much stinkeroos these people can stand. So, what was the first match?
AJ Styles and Tomko, who are the tag team champs, defeat BG James and Bob Armstrong for the tag team titles.
Yeah.
Not a great one here. Weird.
Now, I forgot. No, well, I remember Bob coming in. You know, Bob wasn't a young man then. Bob was probably 70 years old. But he was BG's father. So you'd have to accept that for what it was worth. I don't think it was a good opener at all. But they beat BG, right?
Yeah.
And I think BG at the time, he was having some problems. And see, a lot of times you see something on TV and you say, well, why did they do that? Well, you don't know the whole story of what's going on backstage or in the real life. I think BG was having some problems, and I don't know who he was having it with. I think I'll just leave it like that. He was having some problems, so no plans were set in stone for him. And Bob, he had come in and he'd interfered on the part of BG. BG a couple of times. So we came around and put him in a match. And I don't know whose idea that was. I don't think that was mine. I think he was better used outside the ring. But not a great match. It advanced Tomko and AJ, but really not that much, because you got to be very careful when you book somebody who's over the age of competitiveness, because you can go two ways with it. If he beat you, that old man beat you. And if you beat him, you beat an old man. So it's a lose-lose proposition, no matter which way you go. You agree to that?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Well, I learned that like second year in the business. Show number 2, match number 2. What was in there?
Oh, I forgot to mention this. I wanted to mention this. It's actually not in the Impact Zone. So we're in Greenville, South Carolina at the Bilo Center. The attendance was around 3,500 for the show.
Yeah, it was pretty decent house.
Yeah.
And that Bilo Center in Greenville is a really nice building. And I remember there, and I remember this match. It was between Abyss and Banderas or Mesias? Was that it?
Yeah, that's later on in the evening. Yeah, the barbed wire. Yeah.
No, who was in this match?
Oh, the second match.
The match you're talking about. Yeah, the second match.
Tracy Brooks defeats Peyton Banks. Basically a 5-minute match.
Yeah.
Nothing that great.
Yeah, no. Peyton I forgot how that girl got there. You know what I wanted to call her? Robin Banks. I think it'd been a lot better than Peyton.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I like
Robin Banks.
Yep.
Yeah. And you know, this is something that I don't think hardly anybody knows is that Tracy Brooks had an arm she couldn't raise above her shoulder level. Did you know that?
No idea.
She had an arm. I think it was her. I can't remember now. But you could never tell it by watching her work. You could never see that something was amiss with her. Because she told me one day, she said, "Oh, I can't raise my arm above this level here." I said, "You can't throw a punch?" No. I think if it was her right shoulder, I think she would give chops or something. But I will give her props for covering up as well as she did, because I couldn't tell it. She had to tell me, and I don't know if she wants that to be known, but I think it's been almost 12 years since then, so I think a lot of people probably know it, or if they don't, they know it now. And I don't know if it was a nerve problem or it was something. I don't know if she got it repaired, she got it fixed. So, and Tracy Brooks, I love that girl. She was funny, always up, and she ended up marrying Kazarian. And she's married to him now. So I wish them all the success in the world. And if they've been married, I don't know how long it's been since they got married. It's been 10 years or more, maybe. But they're still together, and congratulations to both of them. So wrestling marriages suffer sometimes just by being around it. So that's I'm going to be like Gump now, saying, well, that's all I got to say about that. So who was in that third match, John? What did you think about the match?
The Tracy Brooks match was okay. The next match is Scotty Steiner defeating Petey Williams in a winner-take-all for the TNA X Division and Heavyweight Championship Feast or Fired briefcase. The match goes 9 minutes, 24 seconds. This one was okay. A lot of stips here, though. A lot of...
Well, I'm a big fan of Scotty Steiner.
Me too.
I loved his interviews. That was the best part of it, because he lived his gimmick. He was hilarious. And if you didn't know him, he would scare the crap out of you. And he would intend to do that. And put him and his brother together. Rob, was it Rick? And what was his brother's name?
Well, Rob? Rick on TV, Rob's his real name.
Okay. And what was his brother's name?
Scotty.
You can't remember.
What do you mean? Scotty Steiner.
We're talking about Scotty, but what was his brother?
Oh, it's Rick, but his real name is Rob.
Okay.
His real name is Rob
who was
Rick
the other
Steiner, but he's really Rick Steiner.
I got it. Rick Steiner. Rick and Scott.
Yes.
Okay, but anyway, Scott, I'm a huge fan of his. He's funny, he's hilarious. And we had been doing a deal with his partner there, call him the little Scott or something. And he kind of got over it. That's what we called him. And I thought the match was good, decent. There's so much size difference, but they pulled it off. And I kind of liked it. But see, I think the matches at the end kind of made up for. See, a lot of these underneath matches on the pay-per-view are just lackluster. Like I said, you can't tell a story in every match. But they did have a story leading into this. So Scott went over, and what did he become in that match?
So he became the Feast or Fired briefcase winner of the TNA X Division and World Title. So both Feast or Fired briefcases were his.
Yeah. Just thinking about that makes me laugh, because, you know, Scott he was looking at him in the dressing room saying, what the hell am I going to do with it? I said, well, we'll figure it out. We'll do something with it. Read that next match to me there, Mr. John.
Eric Young defeated James Storm with Jackie Moore. singles match for the TNA World Beer Drinking Championship match. Goes almost 8 minutes. It's actually a pretty good match, but it's weird that they had that very jokey. Remember that the beer drinking title that James Storm kind of introduced, and Eric Young was the champ.
Yeah. Well, when I was reading this, I remember they had a good match, but I'm thinking a beer drinking championship, shouldn't that involve beer somewhat?
Yes. Yep.
Don't you think?
Yep. You would think
that would be a big tip off, and I don't know how that came into being, but decent match. They got it in, and clean finish. Maybe a little bit of an edge on it, but not much. So, and I think at this time, I may have said this already, we had made a conscious effort to cut down outside interference, and we wanted more clean finishes. See, that's the way I booked Puerto Rico. I would beat my heels to death, but at the end, I would do something to get the steam back on them. I did that for 2.5 years. Nobody ever caught on to it. Because when the bell rang in Puerto Rico, nobody rushed to leave. You know why? Because I had educated them. Whoop, wait a minute. Don't go yet. Wait a minute. Watch. The trailer is coming. The trailer is coming for next week. And then, bam, we do it. And when that was done, then they'd get up and leave. So sometimes they would stay there, you know. I mean, a lot of people in the bell rang, well, let's get out of here. They didn't do that. They sat there and waited for whatever we had planned for. They didn't know, but they knew it was something, and they'd always respond to it. So that was a little deal I did in Puerto Rico that nobody, I don't think, figured out. And figured out now if you watch it enough. But you got to know what you're watching too. I don't know. Okay, you can figure it out, John, because you're a brain.
Yes.
You know this stuff. What was that next match?
Your favorite, Awesome Kong defends the TNA Women's Championship and defeats ODB in 7 minutes.
And she had Raisha Saeed with her.
Yes, your girl.
See, when we were doing this, that Iraqi war was it was hot. That Iraqi war. Yeah. So I had this girl, and she was cheerleader Melissa. And I said, I don't need a cheerleader. I got enough of little bouncy little blondes around here that can do the cheerleading gimmick. I said, I put the gimmick on her. I said, I want a gimmick that they've never seen before. And I've never seen it before, and I've never seen it after. Because I put that burqa, I guess they call it the burqa, on her, and you could just see her eyes.
Yep.
And I thought Kong was the perfect candidate to, hang on a second. I'm paying you by the hour. That's my daughter over there, by the way, banging around. Oh, she won 2 big prizes, 2 big awards on her job. Very good.
Oh, nice.
200 people eligible for this award, and she won it.
Nice.
Pretty good. So, because she's a salesman, I told her one time, I said, man, I've heard her on some calls. I said, you could sell a dying man a health club membership. And she liked that. But I put this gimmick on her, and I thought I would get more like brushback on it for using a Muslim character on a Spike TV show, or like a mainstream TV show. But I never heard a word about it.
Wow.
And Kong went out there, and she was the perfect second for Kong. And she beat ODB, and Kong was working her way toward, Kong had the title, correct? ODB challenged her for it. Is that what it was?
Exactly.
And kind of a clean finish, I think. my Raisha Saeed girl made a move and kind of drew ODB's attention, and then Kong busted her. And let me tell you how I knew I had Kong over. Because my sister called me, and she lived in Atlanta, and she doesn't like wrestling. She couldn't, only that I'm in it. And she'll listen to what I got to say. But I told her about these girls that we were booking in TNA, so she started watching it. And she told me one time, she says, you know, I watch your show, but I only watch one person. I said, who? She says, a Kong. I only watch her. I said, why? She said, I don't like anybody else, but I like her. And she said, I tell my grandsons, when Kong comes on, when they were watching the show, when Kong comes on, tell me. And when Kong would come on, they say, hey, she's on, Kong's on, Kong's on. It said she would go in there and get her a cup of coffee. She'd sit down. She would watch Kong's match, and that was it. She'd get up and leave.
Wow.
Because that's the only thing she watched the knockouts for was Kong. So I'm thinking to myself, you know, if I can get, and she wasn't a fan. So I was thinking, you know, if she's not a fan, but she will watch Kong, I can put some steam on Kong. And I think she wasn't the only one out there. And apparently she wasn't, because we did tremendous ratings with Kong. Kong beat Angle later on, and she was a little more established. She beat Angle, she beat Sting, she beat Jeff, Babis, Banderas, AJ. She beat them all. So sometimes, you know, and you go for average, what the average was on the show. Sometimes we do a 2.8, but out of that 2.8, it would be Kong did a 3.2, which raised maybe the 2.3 or the 2.4s up higher. So your average was higher with those knockouts. Guess how many thank yous I got for that idea?
0.
I didn't get anything. It's people look at me like, I don't know. But anyway, I enjoyed it, and I'm glad for Kong. Kong then went from there because she had a money dispute, and I don't blame her because they weren't paying her for what she was drawing. You know, if you put Angle and Sting both in the ring with their legacy, they do a 2.6. I put Kong and Gail Kim in there, and they did a 3.4. I've said that before.
Yeah, amazing.
So go figure. And that's why I thought the girls in TNA was the perfect example to highlight and to put to the forefront. And we could have done more. We'd usually try to put 2 girls matches on TV, and usually I think after this, maybe 2 girls matches or tag team girls matches, and Kong and whoever she's angling with at that point. Put 2 matches on the pay-per-view, and they would do well. They would do great. So anyway, Kong was my pet. Raisha Saeed was my other little pet, and we just took it from there. See, I told Kong one day, she said, well, what do you want me to do? And somebody said in the back one day, she said, Kong never takes any bumps. Why? I said, because I told her not to.
Right. Yeah.
I said, I'm not going to have a 350-pound woman taking a bump off a 130-pound opponent. I said, are you crazy? I said, nobody's going to believe that. She's not a bump machine anyway. And I told her, I said, I'm going to get you over with the Abdullah, formula.
Never
Don't you take a bump till I tell you to.
Right.
I don't care what you do. Don't take the bump. If somebody complains about it, tell them to come see me. And I tell them, I told you not to take a bump because this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. I'm trying to drag that girl out and get the most out of her because she still had room to grow. But the reason she left was she signed a deal for X number of dollars per appearance. So, and she was getting that, but then she heard, and I don't blame her, she heard what her ratings were doing, and she wanted more money.
Yep.
And they just clammed up. They just, no, we're not going to give you any more money. And she told me that. I went, what? So I went to talk to them about it, and they said, well, we're not in a position where we can offer her more money. I said, do you know what she's contributing? They said, well, yeah, we know that. Because they didn't understand wrestling. See, I could only go to one person with this, and it's with Dixie. But yet, she was telling me, and then she told me, well, I give them more money, I got to give everybody else more money. I said, no, you don't have, you may have to give Gail Kim a little more money, but I think it's well worth it to show Spike TV that you can get up there to a 3.0 and stay there average. So that's what we were working for. See, before we was doing like a year or two before, we was doing like a 1.8 average. So that means you were only getting barely over 2 sometimes.
Right.
See, because they had it to where you could look at minute by minute by minute ratings. And if you would look on the format, what you had, and say at 8 o'clock it opened up with, say, a 1.7 or whatever it opened up with. And then you do your first segment, then it tells what that goes to. Then you can always tell in the commercial it will drop. But that's what you got to watch the commercials. Because once they leave, they may not come back. So you better keep the show kind of upbeat to then. And what you're trying to do, you're trying to outsmart the viewer, and which is easier said than done. Because a lot of viewers, if something's not happened, they just leave. I don't blame them, because you've got so much to watch on TV. So unless it's interesting, or you're just a hard shell Baptist wrestling fan, you'll leave, and there's no guarantee that you'll come back. But anyway, I think Kong was in the mode of getting her back, and I think this was probably after we were leading up to her Gail Kim main event match coming up in the next couple of months, which did do almost a record rating. So, but we're not there yet, but we're working to get there. What was that next match? That was number 4, right, or number 5?
That was the 5th match. The 6th match is Abyss defeating Judas Mesias with Father James Mitchell in 15 minutes in the barbed wire massacre match. It's pretty good here from Abyss and Judas Mesias.
Now, yeah, let me say one thing about Abyss, and I may have said it last week. Abyss was a student of the game. He studied the game. He would sit down and he would watch. He'd watch every match that he could live on TV. He'd watch it on the monitor. But he was always, hang on a minute, John. You may have to edit this. How long is it going to take you to do that? Thank God. 1, 2, 3. We're back on. Okay. But Abyss he would go to bed thinking it. He would dream of it. He would wake up thinking of it. He was like infatuated by the wrestling business. And he studied it. You know, and I gave him some pointers, but not that much. Because a lot of wrestlers during that time, and even today, they don't work for the crowd. They don't work for that person who bought the ticket way up high. They don't work for them. A lot of them work for the dressing room, because they want to go back to the dressing room and the guy said, wow, man, what a move. Oh, it was great, great, great. Yeah, but it won't sell a ticket unless it has something to do with the story. They can do these athletes today, they can do a lot of great moves, but it won't draw a dime.
True.
If they placed it in the right spot, yeah, maybe true. But instead of working for the people, they work for the dressing room. But Abyss didn't do that. He did it a little bit when I had him in Puerto Rico, and I told him to stop. Don't work for the dressing room. I want you to work for yourself. I want you to work for Abyss. I want you to work for the character. You're 300 350 pounds or 340 pounds. So work like you're 340 pounds. And I also told him, stop taking so many bumps. So if you don't take the bumps up early, you won't kill that move. So when you do take them later, that means your opponent had to work to take you off your feet. And he understood that. He understood the psychology behind that. And I told him, like I tell every young aspiring wrestler, it's like a comic going on stage. You got to read the room. You got to read the vibes. What are you getting back? And that's what you got to get. Because if you don't read the room and start doing that stuff right off the bat, people don't know how to react. You have to educate them, and you have maybe 10 minutes to do it. But the ones that can do it are the ones that succeed. So, and reading the room, I learned that a long time ago. An old time booker told me, he said, listen, and reading the room is just listening to the people. See how they're reacting to you. And if you get a fairly positive heel reaction, then play to it. Vince said one time, he said, guys, I don't want you going to the ring and asking the people whether they approve or not. I thought, well, damn, I thought that's what wrestling was.
Right.
So when you see Vince go to the ring, what's he doing? He's doing those arms like this. He's looking at them. Because that's what got him heat. And he had more heat at one time than all the heels combined, him. And he did it well. And you actually used that same formula in Puerto Rico with Savio Vega. And brother, he had heat out the yin-yang. Plus, he could actually wrestle. Vince couldn't really wrestle that much. He got in a few matches. But the matches he got in, they were main event caliber. Because the people would pay money to see it. So, but the match between Abyss and I call him Ricky Banderas, because I had him in Puerto Rico too. And when I got there, they had him. He was like a little baby face. They didn't know what to do with him. And I said, and I asked him one day. I said, El Mesias. He ended up with that name in Mexico, and he's still in Mexico. What was his other name? Mil Mortex.
Yes.
In Spanish, means 1,000 deaths. He's a great heel. So I started talking to him one day, and I found out he's a little bit on the dark side too. So I started doing videos of him, like of graveyards, like at sundown, where it's getting dark, and I would see him, and he would stand up behind the gravestone, and he would raise his arms up like this, and all you're doing there is just, and no commentary on it. It was just that. It was only like 35, 45, maybe 45 seconds or a minute, maybe not long. You would see that, and then it would go. Now, the people have to make their minds up. Is that what he's like? But when you put it in their heads, well, he's a little bit of a dark character, they'll buy that because they bought it there. And somebody asked me one time, how did you book Puerto Rico? I said, I don't know. I don't even speak Spanish. But I would just lay it out, what I wanted them to say or do, and my interpreter would give it to them, and they understood it. They got it. And the people got it. So I was doing ratings there. Not me, I mean the company. We would hit a 20 sometimes rating. Didn't do it much, but a 20.
Wow.
And this was not 2002. And it had only done, when I got there, they was doing a 1.6 or 1.8 or something. Maybe I may have been doing a 3. But hell, a Viagra commercial in damn Puerto Rico would do a 4. So surely we could beat that. And it raised up. Now I'll tell you the story on another episode about how I ended up in this other company. There were 2 companies there. Carlos, who was the traditional company, and then another guy. Victor Quinones. He had the money, so he opened up a second company. But when I took over, Carlos was doing, and I left Carlos, come back 2 weeks later, and went to work for this other company during over a Christmas break. And Carlos was doing about, at this point, a 12. And the IWA, which is the company I jumped to, was doing like a 2.8. And then all of a sudden it went, after about 3 months. And one time I jumped over him because I brought Kane down, big show, so it jumped over him. And then they dropped down to about the 6s, and I went up, to over 16. So at one time at 20. But those were prime time numbers. So they asked me, how you doing this? And I didn't have time to sit down and say, oh, well, it's just a lot of little things. And even Jeff Jarrett came down there one time. He looked at the crowds and he said, how you doing this? I said, I don't know. I'm just lucky, I guess. I don't know. But Banderas, and I made a mistake with Banderas when I brought him to TNA. But again, I always preach patience because I knew what the guy could do. But they were saying, no, somebody didn't like him. I don't think Dixie liked him or something. But I think it transferred to the creative team that she's not a real big fan of his because she didn't know wrestling. I'm not blaming her. She just didn't personally like it herself. So she thought, and she wasn't even a wrestling fan, which was another thing I urged. Listen, I said, she's not a wrestling fan. We can't judge on pushing this guy. I know what he can do. We can't judge and instead of hearing a bunch of stuff from Dixie, because she was the owner. So sometimes you got to go with what management wants. And so we ended up letting that get away from us. So I wish we hadn't have done that, but we did. So, but they had a great match. Abyss was great in these type matches because I think he liked that hardcore style anyway. You know what I could never do in the hardcore style, because I don't like hardcore anyway. I hate that crap. Is tags. Between me and you, John.
Yeah.
Fuck that. I ain't taking no goddamn tax.
Yep. I
ain't doing it. You're not going to. If you throw some tax down, well, you go lay in them. I'm not laying in them. You know what would hurt the worst is get them in your hands.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
I agree. That would hurt like hell. They say, oh, it don't hurt. The hell it don't. Just take a tack and just run it in your finger. Run it in your hand right there. Oh, what the hell am I doing? And what if you got a couple of hundred in you? And I don't know if I've seen that many. I've seen 50 to 75 in people. It's all over their back, legs. I'm not doing that. So, and I think anybody that does it, I respect them a lot more than I respect myself to do it. I wouldn't do it. I've seen guys take, choke slams in them and all over their back. I never could see myself doing that. Hence, that's why I never did it. Never had a tag match. I think somebody dumped some out, and I went the other way. I went to like the bathroom. That's where I went, so I didn't have to fall into them.
Nice.
But they had a great match, and I think Jim Mitchell doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Great mouthpiece for Abyss. He was a great talker. He looked the part. Had those Ox Baker eyebrows. He would tweak up. And great talker. So, and it's funny to me he didn't really make it. He was in WCW at one time, right?
Yes, and ECW.
Wasn't he there?
Yep.
And ECW, but not for a long time, right?
Nope.
He was never in WWE either, right?
No.
Mm-hmm. Well, because WWE, his interviews were better than what they could script for him. So he'd just go out there and do his interview. We never wrote one thing, Vince may have, but I never wrote one thing down for talent to say. I would give them some pointers. How about saying this and saying that? But as far as writing it down, To me, that's how I think people get over. Well, no, I know that's how people get over. Because how did people get over 30, 40 years ago? We didn't write stuff down. Oh, say this out there. They'd look at you like, get the hell out of here. Because it's almost like crowdsourcing. Let them do it. Because they got a certain style that they can do. And remember the other week I was talking about, you may not have heard this, but I was talking about Ronda Rousey on SmackDown. She got out there and she forgot her interview. And you can tell she forgot because she's looking around. And it was a very uncomfortable pause where she had lost track of what she wanted to say. And it's obvious.
Yep.
I mean, Charlotte covered for her, but she forgot her whole deal. But anyway, let's go back to Abyss and Mesias. Great hardcore match. And I would put that up against any of them.
Nice.
So our last match was, or do we have another one?
So we have a few. Booker T versus Robert Rood ended in a double countout match, went about 9 minutes. Keeping Robert Rood strong here against Booker T.
Because I forgot what happened. I think Rood had done something to him. I forgot what he'd done. I think he may have stole his car or something. And we had worked the TV taping to where Rood was having a match, and here come that Booker T out of that back, and he took off after Rood, and Rood run around the ring and through the ring, then back up the ramp, and he ran in, then he ran around the back a little bit, then out the door.
Yep.
And that Booker T was chasing him, and he almost caught him a time or two, and then he was in a car waiting. Just happened to be a car waiting for him, by the way. Yes. And he hopped in and they drove off. And of course, Booker T didn't get him. He almost got him, but he didn't get him, which I think is a great lead up to this match, that he may get him. And it just continued the story. And we'll just use another match to get there. Who was Robert Rood working with?
Peyton Banks, who had the match earlier in the evening. Oh, Booker T.
No. That's right. I thought you said Booker T ran in. But he was getting ready to really get the best of Rood, and Rood took off. He followed him. Then now I got to go back and think about why was the Peyton Banks girl there. That is perturbing me right now. I'll know it next time. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Because when you get hit on the head a couple of 100,000 times, John, sometimes your memory just goes away. I remember the name, and I thought Robin Banks is a perfect name for her. And when I suggested that we'd already named her, I said, I don't give a crap. Just take Peyton off, put Robin on. Oh, no, we already got it. I said, all right. But Robin Banks I thought was great. But nobody used it, so nobody will ever know.
Yep.
So what's the other match we got?
The Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, and Jay Lethal defeat Johnny Devine and Team 3D in a 6-man tag street fight for the TNA X Division Championship. Since Lethal gets the pin for his team, he becomes the X Division champion, and Team 3D now is subject to a weight limit. Had Devine and 3D won, the X Division title would have been on Devine, but the X Division itself would have been forced to disband. The match goes 12 minutes, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Whew, that is too much to handle right there. I'm getting confused reading it.
I don't know what the weight limit was for the X Division. I think it was
there was no weight limit.
I think.
But isn't it no limits? It's X Division.
Well, what were they going for? They were just to kick them out? Yeah,
this is where I'm saying, though, like logically, though, they used to always say, like, there's no limit.
But I do remember somebody bringing some scales out during a TV and having them weigh.
Yeah, you got to be under
they weighed like
220. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, but they did have no limit. So I would have to go back there and actually talk to some people to figure out what was the X Division mantra. I don't even remember what that was, but that was a pretty decent deal, I think.
Yeah.
Again,
good.
you know, Team 3D is, if they want to work, they can work. They're like, you know, I've seen a lot of guys like that. If they want to work, they can turn it on. If they don't, they'll just slog through it. But in this one, they kind of turned it on. But you know what I found out about Devine? Not Devine. What was the other kid's name? Devine and who?
Bully Ray.
Bubba
Ray.
had a good head. Yeah, he had a good head for this business.
Mm-hmm.
Really good head. If you just sit down, and he was funny too, and he was, you know, and he had ideas. So, and I'm sure he used some of his ideas of Paul Heyman, or Paul Heyman gave him some ideas, but he was a free thinker. So when you gave him a finish, he would make it work. See, that's the key to this. All creative just figures out where they want it to go. And sometimes they just give it to the guys. You guys figure this out, and I'll be back and tell me what you got. And that's the way it's done. I almost knocked my deal over here. 1 second. I'm still here.
Man.
Okay. Good. That was a good catch, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Real good catch. And okay, what was? So we at the main event yet?
Yep. Kurt Angle.
I bet the people are saying, God, get to the main event.
Kurt Angle, who's the world champion, comes out with Karen Angle, defeats Christian Cage, who obviously defends his TNA World Heavyweight Championship in 20 minutes and 40 seconds. Samoa Joe was the ringside enforcer for the match. Interesting to note, this is the same main event of last year's Against All Odds. So 07 and 08 both have Angle versus Christian. The reverse. Christian won last year. Kurt Angle wins this year.
Yeah, because we wrapped those guys up kind of all in one. Was, you know, that's how it would give us different match lineups. So we put Joe and AJ, and Christian, and Angle, and Joe. And we all put them in that running for that title. And of course, we wanted to kind of keep it on Kurt because he was kind of the best heel. So, and leading us out of this, you know, now Kurt he could go back with Samoa Joe. And we do lead to Samoa Joe later on. What was the buy rate on this one? Does it say?
Only $25K.
Do you have that information?
Yeah, only $25K.
Yeah, but see, those figures that you have, they're either $20K, $25K, $30K.
Yep.
See, it's almost looked like they're just estimating. So I don't know. But even $30K, I think they were like the pay-per-view was like $40.
Yeah, usually.
So that'd be $1 million total, right? $1.3 million, something. And TNA got half of it, so that was a $600,000 night. Then they paid the talent, so they'd make a good night's earnings there. Okay, Karen Angle being in this.
Yes.
Kind of jogged my memory a little bit because this was about the time that Kurt and Karen kind of separated.
Yes. Yeah, you
and
divorced
then they got
this
a divorce.
Year.
Yep. They got a divorce. Maybe what month was this?
February.
February. I think they were divorced in. You have an idea? About 6 months later.
It was definitely a few months after this, so they're definitely on the way, very close to the divorce.
Well, and I knew they were kind of having some kind of difficulty because it's kind of, you can't hide that. You can't hide emotion. And it's not that they had a screaming fight or something. It's just the way they interacted with each other. You could tell there was tension between them.
Yeah.
And hell, I didn't know anything about it, but I was thinking, what the hell was going on? And but then again, not my business. Never interfere in something that you don't have any business in, because all you can do is maybe make it worse. So I didn't want to make it worse for Karen because I like her. I didn't want to make it worse for Kurt because I'm figured he's having enough hell on earth to start off with. So I just stayed out of it. But I think 6 or 7, 8 months later, they were divorced. And then we all know that Karen ended up with Jeff, and they're still together. And I always thought they were good with each other because they could laugh, and because I was around them, and before me and Jeff both got run off from TNA.
Yeah.
Because when they were together, they were laughing and they were carrying on. But I never saw Karen laugh with Kurt. I don't know. So, but it's none of my business. But they had a good match, and we put the title on Kurt, and which was leading us in a direction. So, which led us to a direction to where Joe later on could say, if I don't win, Kurt, I'm going to quit wrestling forever. He said something like that. I've given myself 3 years to win the title, and if I don't win, I'm going to quit. So, and that drew the biggest buy rates of TNA history.
Yep.
According to who you talk to, that's what I heard. It had to be over more than 20,000 buys. I think it did like 70. And guess how many thanks I got for that?
0.
I got nothing. But I did get a bonus at Christmas that year.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty good. Guess what my bonus was? I can't tell you. Secret. IRS don't even know. So,
damn it.
But I did get a pretty decent bonus. Really, a pretty decent bonus that year. So I think Dixie for that. So it wasn't. My whole time in TNA wasn't miserable. I had a lot of great times and a lot of great people. We were still looking for the right direction, but which brings me back to a committee. I don't like committees because it's easy to switch blame on the committee. It was Vince's idea. It was Jeff's idea. That was very seldom do people say, that was my idea. Because I'll own up to it. But most of the good stuff you saw in TNA was my idea.
Of course.
I'll say that. So you got any questions that I can answer without incriminating myself or getting sued?
No, pretty much got everything. I was just curious about the Karen Angle, Jeff stuff and Kurt, but pretty much everything. Was Russo? I guess there's no really head booker. Was Russo writing this show? Because it seems like he wrote most of the show, just because all the gimmick matches.
Russo wrote the show as per the interviews. That's what he did. As a group, we would sit down and we would. No, he did book the finishes. We would say who we needed to go over, but he would book like the promos. He would book that, and sometimes he would book maybe for the commentary team, Don West and Mike Tenay, which I thought were good together. But sometimes I thought when you would listen to them, I thought they got paid by the word. They were good, but they were busy, and they didn't have any airtime going down. Now, here's a story on Don, and I've never even told Don this, but I think Dixie got a little, she got to listening to the fans because some of them didn't like Don. I loved Don. So she wanted to replace him with Taz. And I kind of objected. I said, well, let's don't, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because Don was there the first show. I said, he's part of the show. I said, if all of a sudden you show up with a different commentator after the fans have gotten used to seeing Don West all these months,
Right.
And all of a sudden, to me, as a viewer, I'm just talking about myself. I'm thinking, wait a minute. I'm not thinking what else did I? What happened to Don? What's the story on him? So I told him, I said, listen, let me do this. I said, let me go to the truck and let me feed Don some lines. And they said, okay, as a last measure. So I told Don, I said, and I told him what was going on. And he said, well, what's the problem? I said, there's no problem. Don't worry about it. Let's me and you work together as a team, and I'll listen to what you say. And then I said, don't be so quick to answer Mike so much. And I said, let me give you some lines. Oh. And some of those lines I fed him were classics. Like we had one match, you get like $50,000 if you win. And I said, Don, tell him that's really only like $34,000 after tax. And he said that the way Don West would say it, and it was hilarious the way he said it. And about 2 weeks later, even Dixie says, Don is sounding so much better. And I went, well, he just needs it. We just threw it. See, he was never a wrestling announcer to begin with. He was a hype guy. You know, he worked for Home Shopping Network or whatever he worked for, and it was in Nashville. And he'd be like an auctioneer on a home shopping channel. That's where they found him, and he was good. And he could have been an auctioneer because he's great. And Don's a really, really good guy. I love that guy, and I think he's had cancer, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Don.
Yep.
And I think he had it in remission, and I think it came back. So anyway, Don, I love you, and I'm wishing the best for you. And whatever I can do, just give me a call, because I think Don West has a lot of fans out there. Still a lot of fans. And he never met a stranger. He would go to some of the shows, and people would come up to him, and he would talk to them like he'd known them 10 years. And that's what fans want you to do. They don't want you to treat them like a fan. They want to be treated like a human being and a friend. So that's the way he treated them. So I got a lot of respect for him. Got a lot of respect for Mike Tenay. Good guys. So, and I used to love to sit around and listen to Mike. He'd tell old stories about some things he would do, and it was good, very, very good. So, any more questions, Mr. John, Dr. John? I think we've kind of critiqued this. What would you give this pay-per-view, John?
I guess like a 6 out of 10. There was a couple of good matches, but just a little overbooked again. Too much gimmicky, schmozzy crap.
Well, that's what you get. But I would give it a 7. Is what I'd give it.
All right.
And what was the best match? Abyss, you think?
Honestly, it was either leading the main event or Abyss. Either Angle, Christian, or Abyss versus Mesias. Probably tied.
And then I would go with Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And then it tails off from there. But you got 3 matches. How many we have? 8?
9 total.
Is that 8 matches?
9 total.
9, okay. And there was another decent match in there. So that's almost half of them. So, it's not going to be a killer every time. And I think most wrestling fans accept that. So, and I don't want to rate myself. It wasn't a super, super outstanding card, but it was better than what we had been doing, I think. Mm-hmm. So we were showing improvement. And when I saw this, you sent it to me, I remembered this card. But I didn't remember that we couldn't have it in Greenville. Was that what you said? We couldn't have it in Greenville because
they had
rules.
You had the Bilo Center.
They had
in Greenville.
I never heard that before in my life. They have all this other stuff. They have bare fist boxing there. They can do that, but all of a sudden you can't have it in. You can't have a wrestling match there. Crazy. So,
weird.
What are we doing next week?
I believe Destination X 2005. do you think about that?
Well, I'd have to see it. See, when you do 12 pay-per-views a year over 9 years, how many is that? 80 something?
Too many. 96,
No,
was it?
it'd be 88. But I did them 2002 to 2009, 12 a year. It's 8. So that'd be like
108.
80,
108. I just looked at my calculator. 108.
And that when I see the layout you send me, I'm thinking, do I remember this? Now I remembered this one, most of it, because there was no need to remember it. But I do remember the main event, which was good. The Karen Angle thing kind of clicked in my memory, and the Abyss match clicked in my memory, and the Kong match clicked, and the Booker and the Rood match clicked. So I give it a 7. Yeah, I'll stay with a 7. I don't want to sound like Meltzer or damn Alvarez or whatever. So, but anyway, anything else you want to ask, John? This is your last time.
Last chance.
All right. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this, and I think I dissected it well. I think for the regular fan, they can listen to some of these explanations and say, well, yeah, that's possible. The match quality, though, I have very little to do with. That's up to the guys. The finishes I'll take half credit for, because I didn't come up with all of them. That was a committee job. So, but we did it, and it's over. The bell's rung. We're off on the pay-per-view. It goes to black. Let's go back to the hotel and drink and go to bed. Wouldn't you like to do that, John?
Yeah, sounds awesome.
All right. That's what we got. So what are we doing next week, did you say? 2005 Destination X?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I'll have to look that up. So you can follow me at you can contact me, Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com, or Facebook at just Dutch Mantell, because sometimes I write stories there. I call it Story Time with Dutch. And some of these stories they've been told before. And the reason I tell them, and I've said this, these old stories are so old that unless they're shown, or where you can read them, they'll just fade into the dust. Nobody will ever know about them. I mean, they're not earth-shaking, but they are pretty decent stories. And people, wrestling fans, they'll read a lot of stuff. Let me ask you this, John, and I've asked wrestling fans this. This is a question. Do you think you're addicted to wrestling?
Oh, maybe. Possibly. Watch it enough.
I asked that question one time on Facebook, and boy, I had like a couple of hundred responses. They said, I knew there was some reason I like it because I can't stay away from it.
Right.
Anything I read that has wrestling in it, I'm going to read it, or I'm going to kind of watch it. But he says, I'm a wrestling fanatic. He said, I just can't. And I think a lot of people are like that. That's why they're looking for an alternative of WWE, and AEW is kind of falling into that mode if they don't get to WWE, which I think was a fault of TNA too. I think we tried to, as a company agreement, not me per se or some people, but I think we tried to copy WWE too much. What we did stop doing, we didn't do that long intro in-ring promo to start every show.
Yeah.
They've been doing that for how long? Forever.
Forever, yeah.
I think I would tell them, if we're going to do a promo like that, Let's open with a good, hard-hitting match, then go to the promo. Let's get them invested in it a little bit. And let's see if we can keep them. And we didn't have any in-ring promos on the pay-per-views much. We've had them, I think. But I don't think we had any, a lot of long-term promos with the Impact show. So here's something, John, we've never talked about, and you can still see this on YouTube. The Ring King. You ever heard about that?
Yes.
It's when TNA, we went to India. We went over there for like 3 weeks. I spent 3 weeks in India between 2011, I think, and 2012. Christmas broke it up, and I come back home. What a long flight. It was like 18 hours in the air.
Oof.
God. And when you got there, brother, you was dead. So, but we'll talk about that one day. Very, very interesting country, especially to do wrestling in. One thing about wrestling, I always remember, John, and anybody listening, it's universal. If you can wrestle in the United States, you can go to Germany and wrestle too. It's the same stuff. You can go to India, same stuff. You can go to Japan, same stuff. Just maybe a different style. But if you can, it's like speaking, it's almost a language. So if you can wrestle in Japan, you can wrestle anywhere. You can wrestle in Europe, all over. So, but anyway, next week, fans, we'll be back. Hope you join us. Do we have a subscribe button here, John?
Not yet, but we'll get one.
What the hell? These people, they have no way to subscribe. All right, man.
Oh, well, you could,
You
of
take care of
course, you can
yourself.
subscribe
Stay
podcast, though, on Apple Podcast. Hit the subscribe button on there. I thought you meant on like YouTube or something, but no, we have it on podcast. Yeah,
No,
University of Dutch on
okay.
Google and Apple and all your podcast providers.
Okay, subscribe to that and say a lot of good things about me. You can knock John all you want. I don't give a crap. But just say good things about me. So let's keep we can roll it from there. So John, you mentioned something about having some live fans so they can ask questions online.
Yes,
when
coming
are we
up.
Start that
Next week we should start.
I'd love that. Okay,
yes,
we'll do it next week. So you'll let the people know. And how will they know about that, John?
We could follow me on
Twitter. You?
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. We'll post some information on it. We'll get that out there to the masses. So at 2Man Power Trip.
Okay. All right. So next week, see everybody and have a real American stand up. Say in a loud, clear voice, we the people. See you next week.